I never imagined that a sink full of dirty dishes would end my marriage before it even began. 2 days. That's all it lasted. 2 days of being someone's wife before I became, in my husband's eyes, someone worth raising a hand against. My name is Mira, and I need to tell you what happened in that house because for months I stayed silent, thinking silence was the price of peace. But peace built on silence isn't peace at all. It's just pain wearing a quiet mask. Let me take you back to the beginning. I married Arjun on a warm November evening, under string lights and the scent of marigolds, surrounded by relatives I barely recognized, and a mother-in-law who smiled at me like she'd already decided who I was going to be. I didn't know then that the smile was a warning I hadn't learned to read yet. I was 26. Arjun was 29. We'd met through family friends, dated quietly for 8 months, and everyone said we looked good together. The kind of good that photographs well but doesn't tell you anything about what happens after the camera stops flashing. I loved him. I want to be honest about that, because this isn't a story about hating a man. It's a story about discovering, slowly and then all at once, that love isn't always enough to protect you from the house you marry into. The wedding was beautiful, exhausting but beautiful. And on the first night, as a new bride, I was still floating, still convinced that whatever came next, we'd figure it out together, the two of us, a team. I didn't know there was a third person in that marriage from the very first hour. Her name was Priya, Arjun's younger sister, 22 years old, unmarried, still living at home, and, as I would learn, still treated like the sun the entire household orbited around. On the first day, I noticed it. Small things. The way my mother-in-law, Kamala, served Priya first at every meal without fail before anyone else touched their plate. The way Priya left her cup on the coffee table and someone, always someone else, picked it up without a word. The way she said, "I'm tired," after dinner, and simply walked to her room, while I stood in the kitchen with my new sister-in-law's abandoned plate in my hands, still wearing my wedding bangles, still smelling of turmeric from the rituals 2 days before. I told myself, this is just the first day. New house, new rules, everyone finding their footing. I told myself patience was a virtue brides needed, and I had plenty of it to spend. But patience runs out faster than people think. It was the second day of my marriage. I remember the light in the kitchen that evening, a dull yellow from the single bulb above the stove, moths circling it like they had nowhere better to be. I had cooked dinner. My mother-in-law had supervised, correcting my spice measurements twice, telling me Arjun liked his food a certain way, as though I hadn't spent 2 months learning his preferences before we even married. We ate. The conversation was polite, careful, the kind adults have when they're still measuring each other. And when the plates were empty, Priya stood up, stretched, and said she had a headache, and disappeared toward her room without looking back. I sat there for a moment, staring at 4 dirty plates. Mine, Arjun's, Kamala's, and Priya's streaked with dal sitting exactly where she'd left it. Something in me, something small and stubborn, refused to let it go. "Priya," I called out, keeping my voice light, almost playful. "Can you help me with the dishes tonight? Just this once." She turned in the doorway. I remember her face very clearly, the way her eyebrows lifted, not in surprise, but in something closer to disbelief, like I'd asked her to do something absurd. "I don't do dishes," she said, simple, flat, as if she were stating a fact about the weather. "That's not really my thing." I laughed a little, thinking she was joking. "It's nobody's thing, Priya, it's just dishes." "Ask Babhai to do it," she said, meaning me, using the very word for me as if I weren't standing 3 feet away. That's what daughters-in-law are for, no. The kitchen went very quiet. I looked at Kamala, half expecting her to correct her daughter, to say something, anything. She just sipped her tea and looked away like she hadn't heard, though I knew she had. I looked at Arjun. He was scrolling through his phone at the table, his jaw tight, refusing to meet my eyes. I felt heat crawl up my neck. Not embarrassment, anger. Clean, simple anger. "That's not fair," I said, quieter now but firmer. "I cooked. I served. The least anyone can do is wash their own plate." "Are you saying I'm lazy?" Priya's voice sharpened instantly, like I'd struck a nerve she'd been protecting for years. "I'm saying it would be nice," I said. "If this wasn't only my job, that's all." I wasn't shouting. I want you to understand that. I wasn't cruel, I wasn't disrespectful. I was tired, and I was asking for something so small it shouldn't have needed asking at all. But Priya's eyes filled with tears, fast, almost theatrical, and she turned to her brother. "Arjun," she said, her voice cracking, "is this how it's going to be now? She's here 2 days and she's already ordering me around in my own house." And that sentence, her own house, landed on me like a slap before the real one ever came. Arjun stood up so fast his chair scraped against the floor. I remember the sound of it more than I remember his face in that first second, that awful screech of wood on tile, cutting through the kitchen like something breaking. "Mira," he said, and his voice was a stranger's voice, low and dangerous in a way I'd never heard from him. "Apologize to my sister." I stared at him. "Apologize? Arjun, I asked her to wash one plate." "I don't care what you asked," he cut me off. "You don't talk to her like that in this house." "I didn't talk to her like anything," I said, my voice shaking now, though I was trying so hard to keep it steady. "I asked her to help, that's it. That's the whole crime." "She's sensitive," he snapped. "You know she's sensitive, everyone knows that, why would you?" "I'm sensitive too, Arjun." The words came out before I could stop them, cracked and raw. "Doesn't anyone care about that?" The kitchen was silent, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the sound of Priya's soft, performative crying by the door. And then it happened. I saw his hand move before I understood what it meant. There wasn't time to flinch, not really, just a blur of motion. And then the sting, sharp and shocking, spreading across my cheek like fire meeting water. My head turned with the force of it. My hand flew up on its own, pressing against my face, as if I could push the pain back inside before it became real. For a second, nobody moved. Not me, not him, not even Priya, whose tears had stopped as if someone had switched them off. The silence afterward was the loudest thing I had ever heard. I looked at Arjun, really looked at him, and I didn't recognize the man standing in front of me. 2 days ago, this same man had held my hand under a wedding canopy and promised to protect me, to choose me, to build a life with me. 2 days. That's how long it took for that promise to turn into this, my cheek burning, my ears ringing faintly, my whole body frozen in a kitchen that suddenly felt like it belonged to everyone except me. "Mira," Arjun said, and for just a flicker of a second, I saw something cross his face, not quite regret, but something close to shock at his own hand. Then it vanished, buried under something harder. "You shouldn't have disrespected my sister." I didn't cry, I want you to know that. Standing there, cheek throbbing, I didn't cry, not yet. I simply looked at him, at his mother sitting silently with her tea, at his sister wiping dry eyes with the back of her hand, and I understood something with a clarity that frightened me. I had married into a house where I would always be the outsider, where my feelings would always come second, where love, apparently, came with conditions I hadn't been told about until it was too late to walk away from the altar. But what none of them knew, what Arjun didn't know as he stood there, breathing hard, waiting for me to break down and apologize the way he expected, was that my father was a lawyer, and my mother had raised me to never, under any circumstances, accept the first slap as the last one I would ever endure. I wiped my face, straightened my spine, and walked out of that kitchen without saying another word. They thought I was defeated. They had no idea I was only just beginning to fight back. I didn't sleep that night. I lay on the edge of the bed, as far from Arjun as the mattress allowed, staring at the ceiling fan turning in slow, tired circles above me. He didn't try to touch me. He didn't try to talk to me either. He just lay there with his back toward me, breathing steadily, as if what happened in that kitchen was already behind him, filed away, forgotten, the way you forget a stubbed toe by morning. But I wasn't made of the same forgetting. Somewhere around 2 in the morning, I finally let myself cry. Quietly into the pillow, so no one in that house would hear me and mistake my tears for weakness they could feed on. I cried for the girl I had been 2 days ago, walking around the mandap with flowers in her hair, believing she was walking toward safety. I cried because that girl didn't exist anymore. She'd been slapped out of existence in a kitchen that smelled like turmeric and betrayal. By morning, I had stopped crying. Something inside me had gone still and cold, the way water goes still right before it freezes. I got up before anyone else, made tea the way I always did, and sat at the dining table with my phone in my hands. Not to call my parents, not yet. I wasn't ready to hear my mother's voice break, wasn't ready to watch my father's calm lawyer's face crumble at the thought of his daughter being hit by the man he'd trusted her with. Instead, I called my closest friend, Divya. She picked up on the second ring, her voice thick with sleep. "Mira, it's 6 in the morning, what's wrong?" "He hit me," I said, just like that. No warm-up, no softening. "Arjun hit me last night." There was a silence on the other end, the kind that tells you someone is holding their breath, trying to process something too big to swallow whole. "What?" she said finally. "What happened? Are you okay? Do you need me to come?" "I'm okay," I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. I needed to say it out loud to someone who'd believe me. "Of course I believe you," Divya said fiercely. "Mira, listen to me. You do not stay in that house another day pretending nothing happened. You hear me." I didn't answer right away. Some old, foolish part of me, the part still clinging to the wedding lights and the promises, wanted to believe this was a mistake, a one-time thing, a man pushed too far by family pressure. But another part of me, colder and wiser, already knew the truth. A man who hits you on day 2 doesn't stop on day 3. He just gets better at excuses. Arjun found me in the kitchen an hour later, packing my things into the same suitcase I'd brought from my parents' house just 3 days before. He stood in the doorway, watching me fold saris I hadn't even had the chance to wear yet. "What are you doing?" he asked, though the answer was obvious enough. "Going home," I said without looking up. "To my parents." "Mira, come on." His voice had softened overnight, taken on that pleading edge men use when they realize consequences might actually be coming for them. "It was one bad moment. I lost my temper. It won't happen again." "You're right," I said, finally looking at him. "It won't, because I won't be here for it to happen too." "You're overreacting," he said, and something in his tone hardened again, the softness evaporating as quickly as it had come. "Every couple fights, Mira. This is normal." "Slapping your wife is not normal, Arjun." My voice didn't shake this time. "Asking your sister to wash one plate is normal. What you did last night is not." Kamala appeared in the doorway behind him, arms crossed, her face a mask of practiced disappointment. "This is exactly the kind of drama I was worried about," she said. "Marrying a girl with no patience, no respect for family." I turned to her slowly. "Respect," I repeated. "Is that what you call it? Watching your son hit his wife and saying nothing? Is that respect, or is that just silence dressed up as tradition?" She had no answer for that. Neither did Priya, who stood a few steps behind her mother, arms wrapped around herself, unable to meet my eyes for the first time since I'd arrived in that house. I left that morning with my suitcase and what remained of my dignity, and I didn't look back at the house, though I heard Arjun calling my name from the doorway, his voice cracking in a way it hadn't the night before, when it mattered. My parents did not react the way I feared. My mother opened the door, took one look at my face, and simply pulled me into her arms without asking a single question first. My father, usually so composed, so measured in every word, went very quiet when I finally told him what happened, and that quiet frightened me more than shouting would have. "We're not sending you back," he said finally, his voice low and firm. "Not now, not ever, if that's what it takes." Over the following weeks, Arjun called. He texted. He sent long, aching messages about how sorry he was, how he'd never meant for things to go that far, how his sister could be difficult and his mother even more so, and he'd simply reacted badly under pressure he didn't know how to handle. He promised counseling. He promised change. He promised, the way people do when they're more afraid of consequences than committed to becoming someone different. I listened to all of it. And then I did something that surprised even me. I asked to meet him, just once in a quiet cafe far from both our families, to say the things I needed to say without an audience deciding how I should feel. He looked smaller than I remembered, sitting across from me in that cafe, his hands wrapped around a coffee cup he never drank. "I miss you," he said. "I know that sounds stupid after everything, but I do." "I believe you," I said, and I meant it. "But Arjun, missing me isn't the same as respecting me, and I don't think you ever learned the difference because no one in your house ever had to." "I can learn," he said. "Give me a chance to prove that." I thought about it, really thought about it, not out of weakness, but because I owed myself an honest answer, not just an angry one. "The problem was never just you," I said finally. "It was a house that taught you that my feelings mattered less than your sister's comfort, that my exhaustion was invisible, but her tears were law. I can't fix that house, Arjun, and I won't spend my marriage trying." "So that's it," his voice cracked. 2 days and we're done." 2 days was enough to show me who steps forward when things get hard, I said quietly, and who lets his hand do the talking instead. We didn't shout. We didn't cry, not really, not in front of each other. We simply sat there in that small cafe, two people who had promised each other forever, and instead found out how quickly forever can collapse into nothing, over something as small and as enormous as a stack of dirty plates. The divorce process was slow, the way these things always are, filled with paperwork and awkward silences and relatives who took sides before they even understood the story. Kamala called my mother once, trying to smooth things over, trying to suggest that I was too sensitive, too quick to end things over one small mistake. My mother, in a voice I had never heard her use before, told her that a slap is never a small mistake. It's a preview of every day that follows, if you're foolish enough to stay and find out. Priya never apologized. Not once. I don't know if she ever understood what her small, careless refusals set into motion, or if she simply moved on, found someone else to serve her, someone else willing to pick up the plate she left behind. Some people never learn the weight of the things they refuse to carry themselves. As for me, I rebuilt slowly. Not with anger, anger fades, and living inside it only burns you along with everything else. I rebuilt with something quieter and sturdier. Self-respect, maybe, or simply the understanding that I deserved a home where my voice didn't need permission to exist. It's been almost a year now. I have my own apartment, small but entirely mine, where the dishes get washed by whoever cooked, or sometimes not at all until morning, and no one raises a hand to teach anyone a lesson about whose comfort matters more. Sometimes people ask me if I regret leaving so quickly, after only 2 days of marriage. I tell them the truth. I don't regret leaving. I regret staying long enough to be slapped in the first place, to have believed, even for a moment, that love could excuse cruelty if you just loved hard enough, forgave fast enough, shrank yourself small enough to fit into someone else's comfort. I learned in that kitchen on the second day of my marriage that some houses will never make room for you, no matter how much you cook, how much you clean, how much you give. And I learned something else, something I carry with me still, quiet and unshakable. The moment someone raises their hand to silence you, that is not the moment to shrink. It is the moment to finally, fully, stand up.